program today. And today we're going to hear from Bill Guthmacher. Am I close? He is going to be telling us about the history of the British Flying Training School Museum that was over in Terrell during World War II, as well as the museum that's there now. And to give you a little bit of background on Bill, he became chairman of the board of the #1 British Flying Training School Museum in 2018 after retiring from a 37-year career in computer software sales. And oh, this is cool. In 2024, King Charles awarded Bill the British Empire Medal for his work in preserving the British and American World War II history. He graduated from Texas Christian University in 1975, and during most of his working career, Bill and his wife Jeannie lived in Ennis, Texas, and where he was in a lot of organizations and also was a deacon and a fill-in preacher at the church he and his family attended. They moved to Terrell in 2013, where they owned and operated the Blue Bonnet RV Park until 22. And he recently retired from the board of directors of the Terrell Chamber of Commerce and the Terrell Airport Board as well. All right. So, without further ado, I will turn it over to Bill, and we'll get to learn some really cool history.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for being here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the school, the museum, and see what we can come up with. And first of all, I'm going to start out by offering you greetings from the #1 British Flying Training School Museum in Terrell. Everybody said to say hi to you. A lot of people ask me how I got to, there we go, how I got involved with the museum. And it's because a lady named Marilyn Bowling came to the RV park we owned and asked me for a donation for an air show one year. And so I donated money, and darn if she didn't come back the next year and ask for another donation. And then asked me if I would mind driving a golf cart as a volunteer. And from there, it got out of control, and now I've been chairman for like 6 years. My dad was in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He was stationed outside northeast of London with the B-17 bomber group. So I inherited a passion for flying from him and developed a passion for World War II through myself, my wife, and for preserving the artifacts of the British Flying Training School that was in Terrell. There were actually 7 schools in what they call the BFTS scheme. The first and largest was in Terrell, that's why it's called the #1. They were also located in Lancaster, California, Miami, Oklahoma, Lewiston, Florida, Mesa, Arizona, Ponca City, Oklahoma, and briefly in Sweetwater, Texas, where now the WASP Museum is. Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time to Terrell, Texas in 1941. And that's where our journey is going to start today. In Terrell, where the population was 10,480. Main Street was Highway 80. That was the newly completed east-west highway across the U.S. from Savannah, Georgia to San Diego, California. There were 2 theaters in Terrell. The second was newly opened. It was the Lyric Theater. It was playing the movie The Wagons Roll at Dawn starring Humphrey Bogart, and admission was 10 cents. Marvin Jarvis Garment Store was offering a tropical worsted suits with a choice of 1 or 2 pairs of slacks. If you got a worsted suit with 1 pair of slacks, it was going to set you back $22.50. If you splurged and got 2 pairs, it was $25. On a more serious note, though, there was a war raging in Europe since 1939. The Battle of Britain was on. But Americans remembered World War I and didn't want any part of another war, so we were politically neutral. As the situation worsened in Europe and in England, Prime Minister Winston Churchill reached out to his friend, President Franklin Roosevelt, and asked for help. But because we were neutral, we couldn't do anything, so he couldn't help them. Some of the help England needed was pilot training, because between the German air superiority and the bad weather, they were losing pilots at an alarming rate. President Roosevelt understood this situation and pressured Congress to pass the Lend-Lease Act, which was done in March 11th of 1941. The act authorized the funding for the British flying training schools, and that's how we started. You know, few things in the world happen without a group or a person championing the cause, and in this case it was the Terrell Aviation Club, who got together and thought we should build one of those schools here in Texas. Oops, I got ahead of me, but that's okay. So they got together with the townspeople of Terrell, and to get a school, you had to own the land that the school was going to go on, the airport was going to go on. And in a period of less than 36 hours, they raised $38,500 to purchase the land. In today's money, that's like $875,000, all from the townspeople and businesses. They purchased the land, and with the help of the then Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, you've heard that name, they got together with a gentleman named W.F. Long, who operated a flying school out of Dallas, and started the school in Terrell. While the facilities were still being built in Terrell, the first cadets arrived in June of 1941. In fact, the first 2 classes were taught in Dallas because the Terrell facilities were not ready. Now think of this. Kids are coming over from England in June of 1941, and they get to Texas, and the weather is hot. That is correct. The average high in England during June is a high of 70 and a low of 56. The average high in England in July is 72 with a low of 59. In Texas, it's like 92 and 74 and 96 and 76. The way the kids got to Terrell was they had to get on a ship in England, and they would go to Nova Scotia. They would have to resign their RAF commissions because we still could not train enemy combatants. We could only train civilians. They would then get on a train, then they would get civilian clothes in Nova Scotia, and the people in Nova Scotia didn't know what to give them, so they gave them wool clothes, right? So they get on a train there, they come down to Dallas, Texas, get on school buses, come out to Terrell, and that's how they got here. When they would reverse the process going back home, picking their RAF commissions back up in Nova Scotia. In fact, it was so hot when one of the cadets was writing in his diary, and he said, I arrived this date, damn hot. The cadets trained in the air on aerobatics, instrument flying, night flying, and while on the ground they studied navigation, meteorology, engines, and armaments. They even spent some time in early flight simulators called Link Trainers, of which we have one here in our museum. They also studied, all the instruction was done by civilian employees, because again, our military could not train other people other than our own. So it was all civilian instructors, and they were very demanding. My wife and I got very fortunate about a little over a year ago. We went to the UK for 3 weeks. And there are 4 cadets that went through the school that are still living. And we got to see 3 of them. One of them was named Brian Latham. He is 100 years old now. He stopped driving about a year and a half ago, by the way. And the only reason he stopped driving was his insurance rates were getting so high, and he figured if he'd gotten a wreck, no matter what, it would be his fault. So we spent about 2 hours talking to him, and he was close to the Cowan family in Terrell. And that's one of the big stories is the families took these kids in. Because they were 17, 18, 19 years old. They'd never been away from home. They didn't know how to drive a car, yet they're coming to learn to fly to go back and defend their country. In fact, Mrs. Cowan taught Brian how to drive a car on the wrong side of the road, but he learned how to drive a car here in Texas. He still refers to them as Mom and Pop. And he paints beautiful watercolors, of which we have a number of them hanging in our museum. Let's hear from Brian.
I had a lovely instructor called Barr, J.G. Barr, came from Dallas. And he took us, he had 4 cadets. And he was very, very good. And he took us over to his home We met the family, and we got on well with him.
Play with this microphone a little bit.
That's funny.
Yes, he was supposed to get the bridge too. That's how it was. Well, you put a foot wrong, you did the ground loop, and you're on the next train to Canada. It was very tough, really. And they had a cadet wing commander. Oh yes, he woke up in the morning. He didn't know whether he was going to bed in Terrell or on the train up to Canada.
It was that bad.
Oh yes, it was that tough. And you didn't overnight if you were kicked off the course.
You were out that day.
You were out that day.
Wow.
At the #1 British Flying Training School, each course was designed for 100 cadets, and they were divided into 2 parts. And so each class had an A and B, so there was a 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Most of the early British students, as I said, had never been in an airplane, didn't know how to drive a car, and yet they're learning how to fly to go back and defend their country. During the 28-week course, the students had weekends and Wednesdays off, and typically they would be at the homes of the townspeople in Terrell. The cadets did have senses of humor. They did different things, and some of them got into a little bit of mischief. Meet Bill Olson. Bill Olson is 99 years old. He'll have a laugh that'll fill this whole museum, as you'll find out. He was, and he still is, just a bit of a character. And we're talking to him, and he said, "You know, I almost got married." We said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I almost got married. Her name was Juanita Elam, and she lived at 622 North Marcellus Street in Dallas. 99 years old. How many of you remember a teenage girlfriend and where they live? Or boyfriend?" We were amazed. Anyway, he's great. Let's hear from him.
So you got to Terrell, you learned to fly, you soloed.
Yeah.
And so it was half day ground school, half day in the air.
Yeah.
And basically, what was it when you were in the air?
Well,
What else
you just
did you
learn, you learn takeoffs, landings, aerobatics, cross countries. Had a trip down to Mexico, poured a stadium light. I forgot the name of the field, Moorfield or somewhere. And they came back.
Okay.
But that was it. It was more or less on night flying. You're not here long enough to hear all the little stories. But I will tell you this, I do Highway 80 fairly well.
Okay.
And one night, Clipper Dick, ace of the skies, went to his girlfriend's house. She didn't know I was in the air. Flew over the in the dark. North Marcellus Avenue. He played along the avenue because it set it down right out north. Which was fine. And 2 things happened. One briefing we had, and I got a very knowing look from the chief instructor, who was an American, that they had a complaint from Dallas by an old lady who said she was in North Marcellus Avenue, and she was sitting in the porch on this night, and she heard a noise, and she looked out and saw a glaring light. She saw it was a car going rather fast. But it turned out to be an airplane with the headlights on, beating up his girlfriend's house, which was yours. God's answer. And the chief instructor in America, all the time he was saying this, he's looking at me like that. But another quickie this is, I don't want to take it down. A quickie. But one night I'd been by usual on the phone, I loved that. I always loved it, even to now. And I went up to Juanita's house and I would buzz around. But on the way back, there was I think it was a Sun Life building, the one only skyscraper in Dallas. It only went up about 18 foot. Do you remember the flying horse on top?
The Pegasus, yeah, on top of the horse.
And I used to flip about the lights of a room and about a quarter of the way down and fly towards them with my headlights on. And go around. And I'll tell you, then a few nights later, chief instructor, a lovely local fella, gave us a night briefing near this end. He says, we've had this notice from, he said it came from high up, I can tell you, it was a proper thing. And he says that it's got to stop. And he was looking at me.
Cadet M.W. Palmer, by the way, he has a number of stories. He was just phenomenal to talk to. What a great guy. There's those of you that know that the tallest building at the time was the Magnolia Building in downtown Dallas. It has a big Pegasus on the top. And my understanding is the Dallas City Council ended up passing an ordinance saying no more buzzing that because it was something the cadets love to do. Cadet M.W. Palmer described arriving in Dallas and going to Terrell this way. Imagine yourself then, one of a number of RAF cadets on the train pulling into a small country town in Texas soon after daybreak. On the platform, which really isn't a platform but a space beside the tracks, you will look in vain for cowboys. But you will find some school buses which will carry you off down a dirt road to the county airport. Your first view of the field will show a collection of low white wooden buildings, their wide verandas screened in against the many bugs, crickets, and beetles of summer. At this time of year, the flower beds will be full of magnificent zinnias, which seem to thrive in heat, and beyond them, you will see the new concrete runways intersecting the grass and the flight operations building with its high control tower. Don't waste time getting into breakfast, though, as after so long in wartime Britain, the grapefruit juice, unlimited ham and eggs, marmalade, and sugar will seem like a mirage. But they are real things, as are the ice cream soda and bottles of Coca-Cola in the canteen. If you remember back during this time, they were under severe rationing in England. In fact, they were almost starving because of all the bombing that was going on and everything that was happening. So these kids came over here and there's unlimited food, unlimited beverages, and they felt guilty. It's the number one thing they wrote home about, was food. And one of the cadets wrote back, I only wish you could be here with me. After filling out all the forms and paperwork, that first evening you will be ready for bed. But before turning in, you might walk down toward the flight line to watch the other fellows taking off for night flying and looking at them and across the flat fields of black earth. I expect you will feel all of your 5,000 miles from home and wonder why you have come so far to do the job. An American woman journalist said she wondered the same thing when she looked across the fields. Then she looked up, and she understood. It was for the sky, the high, hot, cloudless Texas sky. Even if it is dark with the first stars coming out, I am sure the same feeling will get to you, that warm, peaceful height in space to fly in tomorrow. During their free times, as I said, the people of Terrell opened their homes to the cadets. Many lifelong friendships and a few marriages came out of it. But there were some language barriers the cadets had to get used to. The cadets would, in fact, some of the cadets described their first taste of Coca-Cola as that of brown shoe polish. And many times a cadet whose home whose home would use the term homely to describe the female in whose home he had just visited. But in England, that term was used to describe a particularly neat and efficient homemaker. They also had to learn that squash was a vegetable, not a game. On Sundays, they would march in ranks about 1.5 miles to the Episcopal Church. And after church, a large number of cadets would end up in the townspeople's homes for lunch and afternoon R&R. Another notable cadet was a gentleman named Henry Madrick. Henry Madrick arrived in Terrell in 1944 and he was 17 years old. He completed his training, went back to England and to fight the war. But wait a minute, he met a girl named Kate in Terrell. After the war, he and Kate got married, moved to England, spent a few years there, ended up coming back to Terrell. Henry got his U.S. citizenship in 1955, became active in the Terrell community and was actually mayor from 1998 to 2000. And Henry Metrick is the reason for the museum as it is today. During the exercises, 20 cadets lost their lives. In Terrell, in Oakland Cemetery, which is right along Highway 80, there's a plot containing 20 graves with individual headstones. And each headstone has a personalized epitaph for the cadet. There's also a monument dedicating that plot of land back to England in perpetuity. And the British War Graves Commission takes care of it, and they do a great job. In 1993, the #1 BFTS museum was established with the goal of gathering and maintaining artifacts of war and telling this story about training RAF cadets not only in North Texas but around the U.S. Museum volunteers spend thousands of hours putting the museum together, different exhibits that we have, a few of which you're going to see in these pictures, and this next one may look a little bit familiar to you, as it is on loan to us. They also spend many hundreds of hours each year keeping the museum exhibit looking good and fresh. We are also in the process of putting together a STEM aviation room. It's going to be over in our hangar. We have some schools that are interested in the program. It's going to have a simulator in it, which we have, and we'll also have a wind tunnel, and we're doing some other things so we can get the younger kids involved, get them working on that. The board is also currently putting together our next 5-year strategic plan, which I believe will include expansion or new facilities and a number of other capital projects. I'm pretty excited about the future. So in Terrell, Texas, between I guess I ought to get into this. We have a static display AT-6. So the students originally started flying in a Stearman biplane. In fact, this is one of them that was used as a trainer at the school in Terrell. And they would then graduate to an AT-6 for their advanced courses. This, we have a static display AT-6, but this particular biplane was donated to the museum last year. And it just got back from being on tour. It's in our hangar now. The gentleman that owned it was in Florida. He did research on it, realized it had been used as a trainer from 1941 to 1943 at the school in Terrell. And he said it needed to come home, so he donated it to the museum last year. We're going to keep it flying. We've got a crew that maintains it and keeps it going. So the school that was there from 1941 to 1945, about 2,000 British cadets earned their wings, and about another 250 American cadets earned their wings going through the school. It was officially closed September 11 of 1945. But the school was more than just about training students. It really was about the tremendous cooperation between the Allies during World War II. The motto of the school was "The seas divide, but the skies unite." We kind of think that says it all. In everything that we do, we fly 3 flags: the U.S. flag, the British flag, and the Canadian flag, because they were all involved in getting students to the school, and we're still involved with them. We do a Remembrance Day ceremony every year at the cemetery. We did it November 10 this year. And one of our speakers was the Canadian Consul General. Another one was the UK Deputy Consul General in Houston. And we really enjoy having those relationships. The museum is located at the Terrell Airport. We're not real easy to find, but we're there. We're open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., but there's somebody there almost every day, so if you've got a group or you're coming, give us a call. We can probably unlock the doors for you. I just want to thank you all for being here today. Thanks for listening to me. And if you got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Cool, awesome.
Thank you.
I have questions.
Sure.
I have been asked a lot of times when people are over here that have been through Terrell and saw those graves, you mentioned 17.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what causes of death happened to those people?
Most of them were killed flying.
In
There were-
flights?
Yeah, there were flight accidents. There were 2 of them that died of natural causes,
Uh-huh.
but the rest of them were killed in training.
And then my second question is, how and was the Greenville Airport used in this?
It was one of the, Greenville Airport was one of the stops on, that they would come and they would fly across here for a short cross country and then go back or whatever, is my understanding.
Yeah, we had both them, and we also had a group of WASPs that actually stayed there for several months at Majorsfield.
And the,
But
okay.
the British tended to come forwards and back. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
but they worked, the WASPs worked out there for several months. Never could figure out exactly what they were doing, whether they were helping to train or working. We have some photos of them out there, but don't know.
You have, okay.
There, at
That's more
L3,
than-
there's a contingent of RAF personnel at L3 right now because of their working on the aircraft and that. And one of them's on the board of directors.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a great, in fact, we had a number of the families come down for the Remembrance Day ceremony we had about 140 this year, which is normally, the Remembrance Day ceremony at the gravesites, and then from there we do a reception back at the museum. We had about 100 there, but we had about 140 or so at the.
But totally, you had around 2,000 through the period.
We had about 2,300 come through the school, of which about 2,000 are in their wings.
From 41 to 45?
Mhm.
Okay, and we had a stamp thing for rations of food, of certain foods here. So was ours less or more, about the same, or same reason? I mean,
No,
I know
theirs was more severe.
more severe,
Yeah,
okay.
they were
Because
really,
we understood, or according to my, older than me, then said it was because those foods need to be sent to our soldiers.
correct, they did. But we were still growing our own and we weren't under attack here. So we sent it off and we did those sorts of things, but there were so many merchant ships sank trying to bring them food that it was just
Oh, I just remembered somewhere I heard that little story right there. And I totally had forgotten
Yeah.
that story, thank you.
it was really, really tough on them over there because they couldn't grow all their own stuff. And just
their
bringing in
ships.
oil and gas and everything
Yeah.
else, and
Okay.
the Germans with their U-boats were sinking our convoys just about as fast as we could send them.
Well, I have absolutely known nothing, and I am so proud now I can at least participate in saying,
Yeah.
yeah, it's real, and, I mean, because some people say, I don't believe that they're just saying that, but no, y'all are making it very real, and,
The kids didn't know, and they didn't know where they were going. They would get notice that one of them was telling us, it was kind of fun. We went to see the first cadet. His name's Len Miller, and he passed on Friday night. He was, and it's unfortunate because he was a great guy, but he said that he got an extra week of leave. He was on leave and got an extra week of leave, and that way he knew he was going to be shipped out. And it said, go to this port
oh,
on this date, and he boarded his ship and he had no idea where he's going. And he got to Nova Scotia and got all done there, and they said, get on that train. And he didn't know he was going to be in Terrell until they stopped in Terrell. And they said, here you go. And then he was sent out to learn to fly out of the field. But it was interesting. They had to, in order to be able to come over, they had to get some basic flying in the UK, and they would solo in a thing called a Tiger Moth, which is a pretty small airplane, even compared to the Stearman. And then they would go on leave or whatever, and then they would come over and they would learn everything about flying and navigation and all of that. So we have Fort Berry here in Oklahoma. There are 4 more cadets that perished up there. They were flying and didn't realize the weather was closing in on them. And they got in the Arbuckle Mountains around Broken area in that area, and they hit the ground. But it was fascinating talking to him. We went to our first Len Miller. We went to him, and we're said he's 98 years old. We're going to stay about 30 or 40 minutes. We're going to get a little videotape on him. We don't want to wear him out. We left his house 8 hours later. And it's the same with all, you can tell these guys, it's just amazing talking with them, so.
Thank you so much for this. I mean, because I feel so dumb always when, I don't know, I never heard any details other than there was something at Terrell.
Yep.
And that was all I could say was something.
Can you show that slide again with those 7 schools?
Oh, sure.
My dad taught at the one in Lancaster, California. And if you go to YouTube and pull up Abbott and Costello Flying High, it was filmed there, kind of gives you an idea of what their thing looked like. And he met my mom in the Berlin airlift. So she knew she told me a lot of stories about the rationing, and at night they wouldn't even light a candle because the German pilots would look for any kind of light.
Yes.
And that was their target.
Yep.
And we were at a museum. She would take trips back to see her family. The last trip was 2012. We went to this museum that had a gas mask and a little kit. And she says that's what they carry to school. And like we have lockdown drills in present day in our schools. They had air raid drills and at times real air raids. And just like in any war zone, you know, they walk home from school, but they knew that the shelters along the way, you know, to and from school and whatnot, just fascinating.
Some of the cadets lost family members while they were because of the bombing that was going on and all of that. Some of them lost family members. They get word that they lost a loved one. It was quite a time.
And Terrell was a very thriving town before the 41.
Yeah.
Personally, my grandmother lived in the mental institution there from 1931 till her death. I think it was 8.5 years later, something like that. So it was a busy city.
It was, and we're working to, the city's working to do some more things to
Oh, yeah.
make it bigger.
Yeah, again.
At
once
the
again.
museum, we're looking to do, well, I'm looking to do a lot of things. I'm trying to get a reunion going next March or April over in the UK at the RAF Museum just outside of London, of all the living cadets that can travel, and have them come into that RAF museum. And the museum's already said, we'll host you, we're going to have film crews ready, we're going to have, you know, whatever to bring to get the cadets back together. And that's if I can get that pulled off, that's going to be really pretty cool to get everybody together. I've got some of the people that are involved in the other schools ready. We're going to try and probably have a big Zoom meeting coming up and talk about how many cadets can we get together. I know I've got 2 that can travel. I thought I had another one, but he died. And anyway, I know that I've got 2 that can go. The third one's not in real good shape, but that's out of our school. But we're losing them. Like, you know, we just lost one. We're losing them so fast. We need to get them on film. And getting 2 hours of film on each of the 3 was pretty exciting. In fact, we have an intro movie that we show when people come to the museum that tell us the story of the school. And Len Miller did an intro to the intro movie just a couple of months ago.
Your Wednesday through Saturday opening, what are your hours?
10 to 4.
10 to 4.
Right.
Thank you.
And it's a freebie to go in.
I won't tell the good part.
Currently, but, yeah, we have a good time. I have a great time at the museum. I've got a heck of a passion for it. And being retired, it gives me time to do a lot of things with it.
This tour that you're looking at in March, April, would that be open to anybody provided they paid the fee, or just certain ones?
What it's not going to actually be a tour over there. What I'm going to do is a reunion of all the cadets.
Okay.
And I'll fly over and my wife and I will fly over and we'll do a reunion of the cadets there.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
You know, it's going to be, it'll be a lot of fun. My goal is to get some of them and take them out to the airplanes they flew
Oh, man.
and let them start talking.
Oh.
And then I think if I can get them all together and they start telling stories, it will be amazing. When we were in and talking to these cadets and their families were there, and they would Bill Olson talking about flying around the Republic. His family goes, "We never heard that, Dad." And anyway, and we heard, and it was that way with all the cadets. They were telling stories that their families had never heard. And it was just so much fun and such a blessing to be able to talk to them and that. And my goal, like I said, is get them together for a couple of days. We don't want to wear them out, but just have some activities. And if we can get them out to the airplanes and let them talk about flying the airplanes and what they did and things like that, I think it will be just a tremendous thing for everybody. And
sorry.
go ahead.
Did you say the Stearman is at Terrell now?
Mhm. We have a Stearman that flies. It just got there last week.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also have an AT-6 sitting in a hangar. It's in a hangar across from the museum. And the AT-6 is a static display. It's not going to run, but the Stearman flies. I've got about 20 hours flying it. It's a ball to fly. It's a whole lot of fun.
Off your subject, but
Yeah.
maybe you don't know, the WACs were trained in Commerce, Texas. They had dorms and the whole thing.
Right?
I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I did not know that.
They were my babysitters.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go.
And I got a story on my babysitters.
Yeah, it is.
They were busy dating also.
They were. It was. If you want to learn more, a little bit more about the museum, there was a book written by a lady named Lorraine Heath about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's titled "The Girls of Flight City." And it is about a British flying training school based in Terrence, Texas. It's a historical fiction or whatever it's called, but it is the #1 British flying training school. And we've had a number of book clubs that have read it, and then they come through the museum. And she's based in Dallas, and she's been out a number of times to the museum, and it's the only romance novel I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it because it's written from a female point of view, and it's really a cool book, and it's a quick read but a great read.
Once again, her name?
Her name is Lorraine Heath.
He. Okay.
Yeah, and the book's titled "The Girls of Flight City,"
Okay.
and it's a fun read to do.
All right.
And
I have lots of memories of those WACs and what they looked like and
the
where they were living and them at my house.
The base in Sweetwater is an amazing place to visit too.
Yeah, it is. One of the interesting things is if you come through the museum, you'll find out there are a lot of the instructors were women. In fact, the link trainer instructors were all women. And one of the reasons that they were women is because they figured out the men were going to end up going to war. But on the link trainer, the cadets hated the link trainer because it's this big wooden box and you pull a wooden hat over you and everything, and so you're in this thing and it's claustrophobic and it's hot and it's musty, and the cadets hated flying that thing. They wanted to be out flying airplanes. So every chance they got, they didn't want to do it. Well, somebody figured out that if you put a sweet-sounding voice on the instructor side that's good-looking, those guys will line up to get in that sucker.
Oh.
So if you look at the picture of the flight instructors for the link trainer, all women. In fact, they let women do everything except actually be in the air. There were women in the control tower. There were women all over the place. It was very interesting.
Okay.
And the reasons behind it are kind of fun.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, it's real interesting. There are 2 things I tell people when they go through the museum, this kind of thing, and one is I talk about the women and the link trainer because it's not too many people know that. The second is the gentleman that closed the school down was named Ted Sherman, and it's the last person out, lock the door, turn out the lights thing. Well, he had his widow sent us the key that he used to lock the door, the skeleton key. The thing about it is it's in a key pouch with 3 other recent keys, sledge lock keys and things like that. That school meant so much to him that he kept that key with him for the rest of his life. He didn't throw it in a drawer. He didn't put it with his other stuff. He kept it on him for the rest of his life. That's how much it made.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting. And then all the different stories that came out from the cadets and things like that. It was just a lot of fun. Anything else? Thank y'all for your time.
I learned a lot.
That was cool. Well, and as y'all know, next month is January, so we don't have one. Everybody have a wonderful